So today is a follow-up to a video we recorded a few weeks ago
Right.
where we said we were going to be doing a mega game. So we actually got to experience the mega game with the Dukes of Highland group.
Yep.
And got to do that last Saturday. So this week we're finally getting a chance to kind of
go over
debrief
it. Yeah.
and talk about it. So I wanted to share kind of what the experience was like. We got a few pictures we'll post down below so you can kind of see as we talk through this, but it's mostly just kind of sharing our thoughts on how it went, the things we liked, things we didn't like about it, and just overall what the experience is like if you decide you want to try a mega game.
Sure.
So, Rob, let's start out with what you want, a brief description of what you thought the mega game was like.
Well, so I think you were accurate when we talked about it earlier. I guess you can closely relate it to a LARP. So it's a role-playing game where you get a character, you get a clan, and you get a guild, and the name and everything's assigned to you at the beginning of the game. So you kind of show up and you get this stuff given to you, and then you have your table of other players, and you're just kind of talking amongst yourselves. What's kind of unique about us, though, is we were gully dwarves, which meant we were clanless.
Yeah.
So we really didn't have that clan directive that the other groups did. So
and at the beginning, we started out kind of at a disadvantage because other groups, we looked down upon our group.
Yeah.
So we were kind of the outcasts.
And they were less likely to cooperate with us,
Yes.
less likely to work with us. As a matter of fact, there are some groups that did everything they could to not include us and ostracize us, which kind of made it hard on some things and getting stuff done. But I guess I could really just kind of, it felt like just a giant role-playing game, but very loose, though. It wasn't, and this is kind of maybe one of the positives, it's not structured.
Yeah.
And so I guess it's a positive and a negative in a sense. It's just because it's very chaotic, which kind of made it tough for me because I kind of like structure and I kind of like being able to know where point A, point B, point C is. And so that made it a little bit tough, but for me personally, but I could see where people would just thrive in this kind, and some people did. Now you could clearly tell a lot of people just had a fantastic time with this, just that environment of being a little bit more chaotic than I would
so when Tony was on the video before, he kind of just said this one is not like all the mega games.
Right.
It's kind of more borderline LARP than a lot of the other ones are. So, we can't really give you a full impression of what all mega games are like. This is just what Deephaven, the one we were part of, was.
And the reason why it's not really a LARP is you don't have those structured rules like you got like a D&D game where you roll and you have to make hits and saving throws. All that's all built into LARPs too.
Yeah.
This doesn't have that. There's some rolling, but again, it's very loose.
Yeah. What I did like about the rolling, though, is like if you wanted to accomplish something, you would say, I want to build this, or I have these resources, and they gave you more dice depending on the resources you had, whether they made sense with what you were building.
And you had to describe why you were using those assets, is what they called them.
You wanted to give as much detail as you could to what you were trying to specifically build.
Because they were more likely to approve it.
Yeah, and then that you would roll, and if you got sixes, then you accomplished it.
Yeah, you only had to have 1 6.
But the more sixes you got, the better your results.
And that was what the controller kind of did, and I kind of really respected that because they had to come off the cuff is just go from it's a bucket or it's an amazing pail that the king potties in or something. They would just go off on just like the various attributes that item would have.
And then if you failed, it was almost as good because you would get failure results that would actually add attributes of character to it too that were negative. And
a lot of them were fun.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun. Like one of them, the negative turned into a positive for me because like there was, I was asked to build a prize for a beer drinking competition.
A mithril stein.
A mithril stein. So I was given the components except for the ones we had, and I tried to build it. And I rolled no sixes whatsoever, and so they gave me the stein was fairly basic, but it left a sour taste in your mouth after you drank out of it. And it would put a thought in your head. So I took advantage of the fact that it put a thought in your head and added attributes to that and changed the the story, and they had to get approval. They went and checked it out. And they were like, "Oh yeah, we could go. Let's go with that." So we added that to it.
And he was tickled pink. I mean, he was giggling the whole time after that happened.
Well, my character was kind of a chaos gremlin throughout the whole thing anyway, so I was enjoying that aspect of it. So but yeah, I mean, there was a lot of tongue-in-cheek humor in what people were doing that was clearly not intended or part of the initial story, but it added to the story, so they just went with it.
Yeah, and that's one of my pros, is I really liked how organic everything was. Very little, except for the very beginning, was scripted, and that was all from the controllers. So other than that, it was just totally up to the players on what to do, how to do it, whether they're successful or not successful, and it just really branched into a pretty neat story.
Yeah, so the way it was managed, they had kind of a red light, green light system, if you will, but basically different colors. If you had one light color under you, were spent time with your clan, and you kind of, within your clan, you kind of helped each other out. Right. Even though, like, I was part of the Artisans Guild, you were part of the...
I was the Brewers
Guild. Miranda was in some kind of farming guild.
Farming.
And Caleb was a slayer.
Yep.
So we all had different goals, obviously our personal goals, but we also had guild goals. Mm-hmm. And you could choose to take them on, or you could ignore them.
It's just all personal goals. Yeah. Really just personal goals, because it didn't count for anything at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't
matter.
Just
bragging rights.
Yeah. So they really didn't matter. Mm-hmm. And if you would use certain components to build with, that you would gain fame or notoriety for those components. But again, it didn't matter, because it doesn't add up to anything.
But they just added flavor. Yeah. So like one of my things was that I had to get famous. Mm-hmm. So whatever it took for me to be famous. So I had to get my name announced by the dwarves that did all the announcements and the communication.
And I helped with that.
And that helped.
In my own way.
No, you helped in the regard that I had to have a statue made of me put on the map. And so we did that. And that wasn't
quite the way you expected.
Not quite the way I expected, but again, that was something that he took great joy in.
Yes, I enjoyed it. As a matter of fact, I drew the picture of the statue for
him. And then actually put it on the map.
Yep. So you were on the map.
I was on the map. But then there was guild goals as well. So I had to have, every guild had to have a themed beer for that guild. And so we did that. And it was just kind of, again, that organic feel of trying to get those goals accomplished helped develop that story.
Yeah. So, I think that, the fact that it was so freeform in that sense was a positive. On the negative side, I had absolutely no idea what story was going on throughout most of it. There was all kinds of, literally they had a sellout crowd. It was 70, around 70
Yeah, around 70 people, and that was the max that they could do was 70.
And it was total chaos. So, when I say total chaos, there's good chaos.
Yeah. It wasn't like bad.
No,
it was managed well, but I think that they were a little unprepared in that regard, but I think they did the absolute best that they could.
I mean, they had limited staff, obviously. This isn't like it's making a fortune. It's just people really taking time out of their time.
Especially Tony, because it's just all his stuff.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely the creative writer of this one, and then I'm sure other people contributed. The others maybe contributed to this one too.
Yeah, we don't know, but we only know Tony.
He definitely had a staff of people there that had various levels of knowledge. Some of them had probably done it many times. Some of them were probably first timers. It was hard to say, but we definitely encountered different rules depending on which guide you talk to, which kind of caused some confusion throughout. And this was our first time, so we had a lot of questions, obviously, but we couldn't dominate them because they were so few and far between.
Right.
You had maybe one per every 10 people, available to you at a given time. So it was, and most of those people are waiting for die rolls. So there was a lot of hurry up and wait. Mm-hmm. I know I had several times where I had, like, the resources I needed. I was going to build something, and then somebody took a resource from my table while I was working on it. Well, now I got to wait for that resource to come back. But when I get it, I got to wait for the die rolls to get done. So there was a lot of just sitting for periods of time. Not to mention, money was a scarce resource.
Yeah, that part was tough. Because like our guild could get money by creating trouble for other guilds.
Everybody could do that.
But the thing is that trouble isn't really trouble. It's just kind of throw some kinks.
Yeah.
And it could be very light or it could be malicious.
Yeah.
But I guess the meaner it was, the more likely they would approve it.
We were literally starving artists in this game because, like, we would get, we were not making any profit.
Right.
I had to borrow money to get basic supplies at the beginning. I got no starting supplies. I went over to my group. None of them had starting supplies.
Right.
I had to take a loan out from the bank, which I made an agreement with the bank that we'd pay them the loan back, but we would not get interest if I put the statue. That was the best loan I could get. But I still had to pay back the money then.
Right.
And, I kind of pocketed 5 of that money for myself and told them I had 5 in the group because I wanted to make sure I had money for my own personal goals. And then, we still had to pay back 10 gold,
right,
or 10 coin, whatever. And, so it was a matter of then we one of our group went back and renegotiated with the bank to try to get the loan reduced. Given the fact that we're giving them this massive statue, and they managed to get the price down, so we actually got half of that money back. So I was like, great, because I can pay you that back because I already have that. So, but we were still starving for pretty much most of it. And then, we kind of, at one point, we said something to the moderator because it's like, we're not making any money, and, people are negotiating as best they can, but we're just not getting any money. And they're like, well, you can do these whatever we call it, the troubles, for other groups. So I wrote up a trouble to give about basically complaining about the fact that we weren't making any money, but they gave it to the bank for whatever reason. So the same guy we were borrowing from comes back to it. He's like, "What's the problem now? Why aren't you making any money?" And it's like, we can't get any. He's like, "Well, if I gave more loans out to other people, would that help you?" I'm like, "I honestly don't know because that money's not coming to us. So it depends on what they do with the money." So then, we finally started seeing some money come in, and they bring us a trouble to our group saying that the artists are making too much money, and now magic items are out there, and nobody wants art.
Right.
I'm like, well, there goes all of our profits. But then everybody came up and negotiated their own rates, so that trouble seemed to kind of fall off. And the weirdest one was somebody brought us one that said, your jellyfish statues have floated away when there was a flood. And it's like, we didn't build any jellyfish statues. So I was like, okay, we can just ignore that trouble. So, I mean, it was like, there was, several times where things like that happened, and we were like, okay, I have no idea where this comes from. That seems very
And
obscure.
some of ours were pretty mean. Like, we got in trouble where someone said, we had, like, hops. Well, the harvest of hops went bad, so we had to lose our hops and get more to be able to play them again.
Yeah.
So, it just...
But it added a little bit
absolutely.
to the reality of it.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, I didn't mind the troubles, especially since, many of them you could just ignore because they didn't really pertain, But
they weren't, some of them were really funny.
Yeah, the fact that the more that you tried to include them, the more it added to the story. Sure. So I appreciated that. But, we were, really struggling for cash for most of the game.
So were we.
And, but about halfway through, there was kind of an event. I don't want to give everything away in case you decide you want to do this adventure. Sure. But there was kind of a major event that happened that I was like, I have no idea why this is happening. This is out of the blue. And I was on the periphery of it. But then after that, suddenly all these people came over to the artisans that were wanting things that had to do with that event. And I was like, okay, so obviously this is important. And then, it was like, well, it kind of goes along with my personal goals. So I was like, okay, I'll flow with it. So then at the end, whenever I had the opportunity to put the suggestion in with the drink, I was like, I put a suggestion in, but I think I probably should have steered it more like I was the target for it as opposed to just generically.
Yeah, because it was a generic statement and everybody was like, okay.
Yeah, because by the end it was anticlimactic.
It didn't apply to anything.
Well, I mean, at the time it seemed pretty clever, but by the end it was negated because of the fact. But if I had put myself as the target, then that would have made things different. So I think I would have handled it differently, knowing, but because I was completely oblivious to what was going on.
I guess if I was having negative, that might be part of it. Is that I just wasn't aware of all the story elements.
Yes,
and it'd been kind of cool to have been included, or at least been able to go somewhere as a reference to see this is what's going on and where it's all coming from. Because it was I think from what little bit I got, seemed pretty interesting, but
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that I missed out on.
It's I liken it to one of the murder mysteries I write.
Sure.
Everybody has partial information, so you find things out during the course of the night, but you don't get every detail.
Right.
So at the end, when people try to solve it, there's always an aftermath where people talk about it, and the aftermath in this case was people went to a pub afterward, which I think would have been great if we had opportunity to do. Unfortunately, we had tickets to a theater show, and I couldn't.
And I didn't want to, and Caleb and I didn't want to go without Randy and Miranda.
So, it would have been nice. I think that part of it we missed, and that's on us. That's not on them.
That's true.
Because that, to me, is a very important part of
And that could have been
this.
that missing piece that I had.
Because then you get to oh, well, that's why this happened, and
Got
you
it.
get the debriefing, and that is to me something that's when I did do a LARP at Gen Con the first time, that was one I was not expecting to be going by myself to, but I really enjoyed it because I don't really LARP. I always thought of the people hitting each other with swords,
with foam
and
swords,
but that's not what this was. It was more of a historical piece. So I went to it and I enjoyed it, and then afterwards they had a debrief there. I think that is part of the experience.
Sure.
And we didn't get to do that because of our unfortunate timing. So I think it's hard to judge it based on that. But given the fact that while we were there, we missed out on a big chunk of the story, it felt like we were kind of in the dark, and some of the decisions that we made were kind of open and not really fulfilling at the end. So, again, that's...
But really, it didn't really count that much.
No.
In my opinion, it wasn't... I think it'd have been neat to know all that, but it didn't really take away too much from it either.
Well,
so it would have been nice.
Well, plus the fact that we were so into our
guild,
personal goals, our character, our guild
or
goals,
just
our
the guild. I mean, I
goals.
spent more time with the guild stuff than anything, and that might be a reason why I missed out.
Part of the reason you're probably not seeing a whole lot of pictures below because
we were busy.
We were so busy we didn't have time to take a lot of photos because we were so into our personal goals. As a matter of fact, I was very into my personal goals to detriment of the Artisan Guild. I kind of took the opportunity to steer the Artisans Guild into building statues and use that to become like my opportunity to get my goals accomplished of my own. So yeah, they were kind of mischievous more than but they were. So, but yeah, it was still. I still had a lot of fun doing it, and it's if you are into RPGs, which I'm not, you're probably going to enjoy it even more than I did.
Sure.
So, any other thoughts you had on it?
No, I think I covered everything that I wanted to say. I had a good time. A little bit out of my comfort zone, but I still had a good time with it. And maybe a different type I would be interested in.
Yeah, I would definitely like to do one that's more of the board game aspects where you make
like
decisions.
they have one that's like Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah, I would love that.
And you would have loved that. So.
Yeah, and to do one where there's more of you make decisions as a group, kind of, and you have your individual goals.
Yeah,
you could still have an individual goal, but you have a group, then you kind of cast your decision and it affects the board, kind of almost like a diplomacy style, although hopefully less backstabby than diplomacy.
Yeah.
I still like to walk away as friends with these people. I can take great appreciation from what Tony accomplished.
Sure.
Given
that had to been a lot of work.
It was definitely a lot of work. It's definitely coordinating that many people is very difficult. I know from experience at Gen Con trying to do the murder mysteries there. It's he had the advantage of having to communicate with them, which you can't do at Gen Con because you can't ask for people's email. You have to have them contact you. But here he's doing it on his own, and he's able to manage 70 people in a story like that. That's incredible. So kudos to Tony and team.
And that team,
Yeah, and
they did a good job.
Yeah, they definitely did a good job. It was, even though it is out of our comfort zone, it certainly was a lot of fun. And, hopefully we gave you a little bit of a taste of what it's like. If you have a desire.
And some people really got into it, by the way. As you'll see in the pictures, people brought like quilted, knitted beards.
They brought extras. For
Yeah, they
people,
brought extras.
Yeah, in case anybody wanted one.
I had my own, so I didn't have to worry about that.
Yeah, I didn't want anything on my face causing me to itch, and so yeah.
But I thought that was really funny that they brought quilted beards for people to wear. So I thought that was kind of funny.
So yeah, if you've got the desire, check it out.
Yeah.
They're based in Louisville, but they're traveling. I know to Michigan. They
traveling
Michigan,
to Ohio, and Indiana.
And Gen Con. They'll definitely be there. So
and they have a website, Highlands of
Dukes of Highland.
The Dukes of Highland. So look that up.
Yeah, and
we'll put a link in the description so you guys can find it.
If you at Gen Con, check out their events because I'm sure they'll be registered under Dukes of Highland.
I think they said they had 7.
They're good. Well, I don't know how many different occasions. I know there's at least 3 or 4, different stories running up there. So that's going to be
they'll be super busy.
Again, I can. That's a lot of work, and to have I only did one mystery every time I did. I did maybe multiple sessions, but I did one mystery, one story. Here, they're trying to coordinate all of them.
Yeah,
that's crazy. So I think there's 3 at least. So
look them up.
Yeah,
so
definitely
well worth it.
Yeah, it is a full-time day experience. I mean,
we were there for 6 hours.
We were there 6 hours, and then the debrief would have been even longer.
Yeah.
But it's 6 hours commitment is a lot of commitment, but it's a lot of fun too. It'll fly by.
It really did. So other than those few minutes, you get 10-15 minutes to meet with your clan. Everything else,
and then there's a lunch break.
And a lunch break, but everything else was just very busy, constantly moving around and doing stuff.
Yep. Well, that's our thoughts on the Dukes of Highland experience of Deephaven. So, if you got a chance to go, let us know. Let us know who you played because we'd love to,
or suggestions about other mega games that you've experienced. Let us know. And that's something we can look into.
Yeah, or if you have a desire to try one and you're thinking about doing one at Gen Con, let us know. And if you have any questions, we can answer them. So that's our thoughts on Deephaven from Dukes of Highland, and until next time, you keep on acting courageous, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.